The quiet house. Night settles over the Lagos, Nigeria house like a heavy blanket. The ceiling fan turns slowly, stirring the warm air, but doing nothing to loosen the tight knot in Abigeal's chest. The light from a single bulb flickers weakly, throwing long shadows across the living room walls. Abigeal sits on the edge of the old sofa, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She stares at nothing, or maybe at everything that has ever happened to her, all at once. Her face is calm in the way still water is calm, only because the storm beneath has nowhere left to go. The clock on the wall ticks loudly. Each second sounds like a reminder of how long she has been silent. From somewhere deeper in the house, a door creaks. Footsteps move across the tiled floor. Abigeal stiffens without meaning to. Her shoulders rise. She holds her breath until the footsteps fade again. Only then does she let the air escape her lungs. Slow, shaky, careful. Silence returns. But it is not peaceful silence. It is the silence of secrets. The kind of silence that has lived with her for years. On the small table beside the sofa sits an old framed photograph. It shows a younger Abigeal standing beside her mother, both of them smiling as if the world was still safe back then. Abigeal reaches out and traces the glass with her fingertip. For a moment, the memory softens her expression. "I miss you," she whispers, though no one is there to hear. The house used to be filled with her mother's laughter, warm, gentle, alive. Now, even during the day, it feels empty. At night, it feels like the walls are watching. Abigeal pulls her knees up to her chest and wraps her arms around them. She has learned to make herself small. Smaller people take up less space. Smaller people are easier to ignore. Sometimes, she dreams of disappearing completely, not out of despair, but out of exhaustion. She hears Amina's distant voice in another room, murmuring to the younger girls. There is life and movement there. But here, in the living room, it feels like time has stopped. Abigeal wonders what it would feel like to be truly seen, not as a daughter, not as a burden, not as something to control, but simply as a person. Her mind drifts to all the times she wanted to speak. The words always rise in her throat, trembling like fragile birds, but they never learn how to fly. Fear presses them back down again. Fear, and the deep, aching belief that no one will stand beside her if she does. She closes her eyes. For a few quiet seconds, she imagines a different life. One where her mother is still here. One where the house feels safe. One where she does not carry a storm inside her chest. Then the clock ticks again. Reality returns. The night stretches on, slow and endless. And in the middle of the quiet house, Abigeal sits alone, a young woman who has learned to survive in silence, even as the weight of that silence grows heavier by the day. Amina notices. Amina moves through the kitchen with practiced ease. She stirs a pot, flips a pan, places cups carefully in a line. She has grown used to caring for this household, the routines, the rhythms, the small tasks that stitch each day together. But even in the middle of her busyness, she is aware of the quiet girl sitting at the edge of the dining room. Abigeal. She sits with her shoulders curved inward, as if she is trying to fold herself into the chair. A plate of breakfast rests untouched in front of her. The steam has faded. The food has gone cold. Her eyes are distant, not focused on the room, or the table, or anything at all. It is as though her mind lives somewhere far away. Amina pauses, a wooden spoon hovering in midair. She has noticed this before, the way Abigeal drifts through the house like a ghost, always polite, always silent, carrying something heavy that has no name. She tells herself teenagers can be like this. Quiet, closed off, lost inside their thoughts. But this feels different. She wipes her hands on a cloth and walks toward the table. Abigeal, she says gently, careful not to startle her. You haven't eaten. It takes a second before Abigeal even seems to realize she's being spoken to. She blinks, slowly, then looks up. Her expression rearranges itself into something passable, not happy, but neutral, controlled. I'm fine, she replies softly. I'm just not hungry. Her voice is light, almost airy, as if it could disappear between one breath and the next. Amina studies her for a moment longer. The girl's eyes look older than her years, tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. Her hands rest tightly together, fingers locked, as if she is holding herself in place. "You've said that all week," Amina says, trying to keep her tone warm, not accusing. "Are you feeling unwell?" There is a small pause. Something flickers across Abigeal's face, something like panic, there for only a heartbeat, and then it is gone. "No," she says quickly. "I'm okay." The words sound rehearsed, automatic, like a phrase she's had to repeat so often it has become muscle memory. Amina feels an ache form behind her ribs. She wants to reach out, to place a hand on the girl's shoulder, to tell her she doesn't have to carry whatever this is alone. But something holds her back. Maybe it is caution. Maybe it is fear of saying the wrong thing. Maybe it is the quiet distance that has always existed between them. The invisible wall made of grief, loyalty, and unspoken things. So instead, she sighs. "If you need anything," she says softly, "you can always come to me." Abigeal nods. She forces a small smile, the kind given out of politeness rather than joy. "I know," she replies, but her eyes drift away again, back to that far-off place where no one can reach her. Amina stands there a moment longer, torn between staying and retreating. Eventually, she returns to the kitchen, but her thoughts no longer rest on the food she is cooking. They circle around the quiet girl at the table, lingering like a shadow she cannot shake. From the doorway, she watches unnoticed as Abigeal finally pushes the plate slightly away, as if the simple act of eating has become too heavy a task. Amina presses her lips together. Something is wrong. She can feel it, like a change in the weather, like thunder in the distance. But the truth remains just out of reach, wrapped tightly in silence. And in that silence, both of them continue through the morning. One trying to keep life moving forward, the other simply trying to make it through the day. Unspoken tension, extended version. Later that evening, the house feels different. The sun has already slipped beneath the horizon, leaving only the soft orange glow of the living room lamp. Shadows gather slowly in the corners, stretching across the floor like long, silent memories. The radio has been switched off. The younger girls are asleep. And with the noise gone, the quiet returns, heavy and watchful. Abigeal sits on the sofa again, her knees drawn close to her chest. She doesn't cry. She never does, not where anyone can see. Instead, she presses her lips together and stares at the faint cracks in the wall, tracing them silently with her eyes as though they might one day lead her to an answer. From the hallway, Amina passes by carrying folded laundry. She pauses for a breath when she sees the girl sitting alone again. Something inside her tightens. She considers saying something, anything, but the words tangle on her tongue. She settles for a long glance instead. Then she disappears into another room. Abigeal notices. She always notices. She feels the presence of others the way one feels the wind. Not always seen, but always there. And lately, that presence has begun to feel uncertain, watchful, curious, concerned. She presses her fingernails lightly into her palms, grounding herself in the small sting of reality. She has become skilled at silence. Silence is safe. Silence hides. Silence protects the fragile parts of her heart that still hopes someday she might be free from the fear that trails behind her like a shadow. But silence is also lonely. The ceiling fan whirs softly above her. A chair scrapes faintly in another room. Somewhere a door opens, then closes again. These small sounds echo loudly in the stillness. Her thoughts swirl. She remembers a time when she used to laugh more, when the house didn't feel like a maze she had to survive, when she trusted footsteps and voices instead of shrinking from them, when life was simple, or at least safe. That version of herself feels like someone else entirely now. Amina returns to the hallway, hesitates again, and then slowly steps into the living room. "Abigeal," she says gently, "it's getting late. You should rest." There is kindness in her voice, cautious, fragile kindness, like a hand being offered across a river neither of them quite knows how to cross. Abigeal doesn't look up right away. She takes a breath, then another, before finally lifting her eyes. "I know," she replies softly. "I will." The exchange lasts barely a moment. But in that moment, an entire world of emotion passes silently between them. Worry on one side, guardedness on the other. Light brushing against shadow, then sliding away. Amina lingers as if she wants to say more, to ask, "What is happening inside you? What are you afraid of? How can I help?" But the words stay locked inside. She nods instead, then leaves the room with a sigh she doesn't quite release. The house settles further into quiet. Abigeal wraps her arms a little tighter around herself. Not because she is cold, but because some part of her has always believed she must hold herself together, or she might simply fall apart. She listens to the silence. She listens to the way it hums in the walls, in the breathing of the house, in the rhythm of her heart. And though no one speaks, the tension remains, living, breathing, unspoken. It sits between them all like a shadow they pretend not to see. And Abigeal wonders how long a person can live like this, half seen, half heard, drowning in a quiet no one fully understands. The night drifts on, and the silence stays, alone with her thoughts. When night finally settles and the house grows quiet, Abigeal retreats into her small, simple Lagos apartment, the only place she has ever truly been able to hide her thoughts. She lies on her bed staring at the ceiling, watching the shifting shadows move like slow clouds. The faint noises of the house echo through the walls, the distant closing of a door, the creak of wood, the hum of the fan. But none of it quite reaches her. It all feels far away, like sounds drifting toward her across a deep, still lake. This is the time of day she dreads the most, because this is when memories arrive. Her mind drifts back to a world that feels so distant now, a life where her mother's voice filled their small home like sunshine, where laughter came easily, where the future seemed like something bright and untouched. Her mother's hands were always gentle. Her presence made even the simplest moments, folding clothes, cooking a meal, sitting beneath a tree, feel safe. Loss does not happen all at once. It echoes. Even now, years later, Abigeal can still feel the shape of her absence, like a missing doorway she keeps reaching for. Sometimes she dreams of her mother standing in the kitchen, smiling softly, calling her name. And waking up feels like falling. After her mother died, the world did not stop the way Abigeal's heart did. People still walked and talked and laughed. The sun still rose. But inside, something shifted. The house became quieter. The shadows grew longer. And the air felt heavier, filled with everything she no longer had the words to say. She remembers the early days afterward, the way relatives came and went with voices full of sympathy, the way hands rested on her shoulders, the way everyone said time would heal things. Time did not heal everything. It simply taught her how to hide the pain better. Her father remarried. The house changed again. New routines, new rules, new silences. There were still meals, still chores, still conversations. Life went on, as life always does. But Abigeal felt as though she were watching it through a window rather than living inside it. She learned early that grief is not loud. Sometimes it is very quiet. It lives in the unsaid words, in the small swallowed sighs, in the way a person smiles and hopes no one notices the cracks. And then there is the other weight she carries, the one she cannot name aloud, the one that taught her to fear instead of trust, the one that slowly changed how she saw the world and herself. Just make it through today. Just breathe through tonight. Just hold on a little longer. Nadia reaches out. The next afternoon, the sky is a soft, hazy blue, the kind of sky that looks tired, as though it has been carrying too many clouds all week. The air is warm but gentle, and the trees sway slowly as if they're breathing. Abigeal sits alone on a worn wooden bench in the small bus park near her Aja, Lagos, Nigeria home. It's a simple place, a dusty path looping around a few trees, a playground where children sometimes chase each other, laughter ringing through the air. Today, though, it's quiet. Just a handful of people passing through, lost in their own worlds. She comes here often, not because the park is special, but because it is away from the walls that hold secrets, away from the tension that clings to the house, away from the weight of silence. Here, she can at least pretend the world is bigger than her pain. She sits with her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the ground. From time to time, a breeze brushes past her, lifting a few strands of her hair. She doesn't notice. Her thoughts drift like leaves in slow water, quiet, heavy, directionless. Then she hears footsteps approaching. Soft, familiar. Abigeal. She looks up. Nadia stands a few steps away, her head tilted slightly, concern written across her face. She is one of the few people who has stayed close to Abigeal over the years. Not loudly, not forcefully, but gently. A steady presence. Where Abigeal is quiet, Nadia is warm. Where Abigeal hides her heart, Nadia wears hers openly. She has a way of sitting beside people without crowding them, of staying silent without making the silence feel heavy. "Hey," Nadia says, offering a small smile. "I thought I might find you here." Abigeal tries to return the smile, but it barely reaches her eyes. "Hi." Nadia sits beside her, not too close, not too far, just near enough that Abigeal can feel she isn't alone. For a moment, neither of them speaks. They simply sit, listening to the wind rustle through the leaves. A bird chirps from a nearby branch. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughs. The sounds weave gently through the silence, softening it. "You've been distant lately," Nadia says eventually, her tone calm, not accusing. "More than usual." Abigeal swallows. "I've just been tired." Nadia gives a small nod. "I figured you'd say that." There is no sarcasm in her voice, just quiet honesty. "I don't want to push you," she continues, "but I want you to know something, okay?" Abigeal glances at her cautiously. "You don't have to pretend with me." The words hang between them like something sacred. Abigeal looks away again, blinking slowly. She presses her lips together, searching for steady ground inside herself. She's not used to people noticing. She's even less used to them caring. "It's not easy," she finally says, barely above a whisper. "Talking, I mean." "I know," Nadia replies gently. "You don't have to force it." Silence falls again, but this time, it feels different. Softer. Safer. Nadia's presence is like a blanket laid over sharp edges. She doesn't fill the silence with noise or advice. She doesn't ask the wrong questions. She just stays. And sometimes, staying is the greatest kindness of all. After a while, Abigeal exhales, a long, shaky breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Thank you," she murmurs. "For what?" "For not leaving." Nadia smiles, but there's emotion in her eyes too. "You don't have to thank me for that," she says. "Friends don't leave." The word friend settles gently into Abigeal's chest. Warm, unexpected, a reminder that even in a world that has taken so much from her, not everything has abandoned her. They sit there together as the afternoon stretches on. Two girls on an old park bench, saying very little, but sharing everything that matters. And for the first time in a long while, Abigeal doesn't feel completely alone. Truth begins to surface. The sky has begun to dim, trading its soft blue for shades of amber and rose. The day is quietly folding into evening, and the warm light settles gently over the small park like a shawl. Abigeal and Nadia are still sitting on the old wooden chair, side by side in their Lagos, Aja house, watching the shadows stretch across the ground. Neither of them has moved for a long time. It's not that they're avoiding the moment. It's simply that some moments need time, like seeds that must rest in soil before they're ready to grow. Nadia glances at Abigeal, then back toward the trees. Her voice is soft when she finally speaks. "You know," she says, "there are different kinds of tired. There's the tired you fix with sleep, and then there's the kind that sits in your bones." Abigeal lets out a small breath, part sigh, part release. "The second one," she murmurs. "It's the second one." She doesn't look up. She watches instead as her fingers twist together in her lap. It's as though her hands are trying to speak the words her mouth still can't. "I feel like." She pauses, searching for the right shape for the thought. like I'm always bracing for something. Even when nothing is happening, even when everything is quiet, I still feel it. Inside me. Nadia listens, not interrupting, not reacting too quickly, just listening. It's like the world isn't safe, Abigeal continues, her voice trembling just slightly. Like I'm never really allowed to relax. I don't trust people anymore. Especially men. I can't. She swallows hard, her throat tight. I didn't used to be like this, she whispers. I used to laugh more. I used to believe people were mostly good. But now, when I look at them, especially men, all I feel is fear and anger and this wall inside me. Her confession floats between them, fragile and trembling like a candle flame in the wind. Nadia's heart aches, not in pity, but in compassion. She turns slightly, so she's facing Abigeal more fully, careful still not to push too close. Something changed that for you, she says gently. It isn't a question. It's a quiet truth, spoken softly enough to leave room for silence if needed. Abigeal closes her eyes. For a moment, she is afraid the world itself might shatter if she speaks, that the air will turn heavy, that she will choke on the memories, that the words will betray her. But something inside her, something tired of carrying this alone, finally nudges forward. Yes, she breathes. Something did. Her voice cracks, not loudly, but enough that the sound seems to echo inside her chest. Tears gather at the edges of her eyes, but she blinks them back. She has always tried to be strong. She has always believed that crying makes the pain too real. I felt trapped, she goes on, slower now, like someone walking across a fragile bridge. Like there was nowhere to go, no one to tell, no one who would believe me or protect me. And after a while, I stopped thinking about escape. I just focused on surviving. The last word leaves her lips almost as a sigh. Nadia doesn't say I'm sorry. She doesn't rush to fix anything. She simply reaches out, slowly, gently, and rests her hand on Abigeal's, giving her every chance to pull away. Abigeal doesn't. And that, in itself, is a miracle, small, but real. You don't deserve to feel like that, Nadia says softly. No one does. Whatever happened to you, it wasn't your fault. And you shouldn't have had to face it alone. The words land like rain on dry ground. For the first time in a very long time, Abigeal feels something loosening inside her. Not gone, not healed, but given a little room to breathe. I still feel broken, she admits. Like I can't trust men. Like I can't even trust myself sometimes. I question everything. That makes sense, Nadia replies gently. When someone hurts you, especially someone who should have protected you, it changes how you see the world. But broken isn't the end of the story. And you're not broken to me. There is silence again, but this time it isn't heavy. It is sacred, safe. A bird takes off from a nearby branch, wings beating softly against the cooling air. I don't know how to heal, Abigeal whispers. You don't have to know yet, Nadia says. You only have to know you're not alone anymore. The words settle deep into Abigeal's heart, like a promise she didn't know she needed. Evening deepens around them. The streetlights flicker on one by one, casting pools of gentle light across the path. The world outside continues moving, unaware of the quiet, fragile moment unfolding on an old park bench. But for Abigeal, something has shifted. For the first time, the truth has begun to surface, carefully, cautiously, and she has shared a small piece of it with someone who sees her not as a burden, not as a problem, but as a human being worthy of care. And that is where healing, slowly, painfully, bravely, begins. Feeling trapped, extended version, the evening has settled fully now. The world has turned dusky purple, and the first faint stars are beginning to appear like shy eyes peeking through the sky. Streetlights hum quietly, bathing the path in small circles of pale gold. Abigeal and Nadia are still on the Elagushi, Ikate, Lagos, bench, but the air between them has changed. It is no longer filled with unspoken tension. Now it carries something softer, something fragile, something like trust. Abigeal draws in a slow breath, then another, as though she is learning how to breathe all over again. Her fingers tighten slightly around Nadia's hand, not clinging, just grounding. When my mother died, she begins quietly. Everything inside me broke, but the world expected me to just keep going. Her voice is steady, but there is a tremble underneath it, the tremble of truths that have been held inside for too long. At first, everyone was around, she continues. They brought food. They hugged me. They said to be strong. But weeks passed, months, and eventually people stopped coming. They went back to their lives. And I was still there, in that house, with a hole in my chest that never closed. She swallows. I kept waiting for someone to notice, to look at me, really look, and see that I wasn't okay. But no one did. They just assumed I was coping. They assumed silence meant strength. Her eyes glisten in the streetlight. It didn't, she whispers. It meant I felt invisible. The word sinks heavily into the night. Invisible. Nadia listens, heart aching, but she stays quiet, offering space. And then, Abigeal continues, carefully, gently, like someone walking barefoot over broken glass. Things at home changed even more. I started to feel unsafe, like I was living inside a cage no one could see. She doesn't describe details. She doesn't need to. The pain, the fear, the betrayal, they all live behind her words like shadows that do not need to be named to be real. It was like the walls were closing in, she says. I would wake up already afraid. I would go to bed afraid. Every day felt like walking through a storm with no shelter. And I kept thinking, if I tell someone, will they even believe me? Will they help? Or will they say I'm lying? Will they say I'm ungrateful? Will they tell me to keep quiet? A tear finally escapes and slides down her cheek. Not loud sobbing, not dramatic, just a silent tear for all the versions of herself that had to hold on alone. I didn't have anyone to stand up for me, she says softly. No one. So I learned to survive by disappearing, by shrinking, by staying silent. And the more silent I became, the more trapped I felt, like my own voice had been locked away somewhere far from me. She pauses. I think that's when I stopped trusting men, she admits. Because the one person who was supposed to protect me didn't. And after that, trust didn't feel safe anymore. Love didn't feel safe. Nothing did. The confession hangs in the air, not loud, not shouted, but powerful in its quiet courage. Nadia squeezes her hand gently. I'm so sorry you went through all of that, she says softly. You should never have been left alone with that kind of pain. You should have been protected, and believed, and safe. Abigeal closes her eyes for a moment, letting the words sink in. They feel like a balm, not enough to erase the wounds, but enough to remind her she does not deserve them. For a long time, Abigeal continues, I blamed myself. I thought, maybe this is my fault. Maybe I should have fought harder. Maybe I should have spoken louder. Maybe I should have been different. Her voice cracks again. But deep down, I was just a girl who needed someone to stand up for her. And no one did. The night is quiet except for the soft sigh of the breeze moving through the trees. Nadia turns toward her fully now, not invading, not overwhelming, just present. You didn't fail yourself, she says gently. The people who should have protected you failed you. And that is not the same thing. Abigeal breathes in shakily. It is strange how hearing the truth spoken aloud can hurt and heal at the same time. I still feel trapped sometimes, she admits. Even when I'm outside. Even when I'm alone. It's like the past sits on my shoulders, reminding me it's still there. That makes sense, Nadia replies. But you're not trapped now. You're here. You're speaking. You're choosing yourself. That takes strength. Abigeal looks at her. Really looks. And for the first time, she sees not just a friend sitting beside her, but a safe place. Someone who will not turn away. Someone who will listen. Someone who believes her. And in that moment, though nothing outward has changed, though the world is still complicated and her past is still heavy, something inside her shifts. Just a little. But sometimes, a little is the beginning of everything. She wipes her cheeks gently and whispers, Thank you for hearing me. Nadia smiles softly. Always. They sit together in the slowly deepening night, two souls beneath a quiet sky. And though the past still lingers, the future no longer feels quite so unreachable. Because now, Abigeal is no longer carrying the truth alone. A promise to herself. The morning light filters softly through the thin curtains of Abigeal's simple Legos self-contained room, painting faint golden lines on the wall. For a long while, she doesn't move. She listens to the quiet hum of life beginning outside, distant voices, the chirping of birds, the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze. It feels strange to wake up with something other than dread in her chest. Not happiness. Not yet, but a small, steady calm. A fragile thread of strength winding its way through her heart. She sits up slowly, drawing her knees to her chest. The silence in her room no longer feels like a heavy blanket pressing her down. Today it feels open, like space she can breathe in. Nadia's words from the previous day linger in her mind. Your life does not end here. The sentence plays on repeat, sinking deeper each time. No one has ever said anything like that to her with such certainty, like a promise. For so long, Abigeal believed her world was already written, that she had no say in its direction, that survival was the only thing she could hope for. But now, a question takes root. What if there is more? The thought scares her, because hope is dangerous. Hope makes you believe in change, and change feels impossible. Still, the idea refuses to leave. She rises from the bed and moves to the small mirror hanging crookedly against the wall. Her reflection looks back, weary eyes, tired but alert. There is something new in them, something quietly determined. She studies her face, searching for the girl she used to be, the one who laughed easily, the one her mother held and whispered stories to. Sometimes Abigeal feels like that girl disappeared the day everything changed. But now, she wonders if a part of her has been here all along, waiting. A soft knock on the door interrupts her thoughts. Abigeal. Nadia's gentle voice filters in. Yes, Abigeal answers. Nadia peeks in with a warm smile. Good morning. There is kindness in her tone, the kind that doesn't pry or demand explanations. It simply says, I'm here. They sit together for a while, talking about ordinary things, the weather, chores, plans for the day. And though the conversation is simple, the meaning is not. Every word feels like a small reminder that Abigeal is no longer completely alone. When Nadia leaves, Abigeal remains seated, her hands folded in her lap. Her heart no longer feels like a fragile glass about to shatter, more like clay, cracked but still holding its shape. Slowly, she closes her eyes. She thinks about the girl she wants to become, someone who walks without fear, someone who trusts, someone who builds a life untouched by the shadows of her past. She knows the journey will not be easy. There will be nights when memories return, days when the air feels too heavy to breathe, moments when her courage falters. But today, she makes a promise to herself, a quiet, steady promise. She will not let the pain define her. She will not let fear shape her future. She will not let the darkness silence her spirit. Even if it takes years, even if the road is long and winding, she will keep walking. She opens her eyes and lets out a slow breath, feeling the promise settle gently inside her chest. For the first time in a very long while, Abigeal feels like she has a direction, not a full map, but a single guiding star. And sometimes, a single star is enough to begin a journey. She stands, smoothing her dress, and steps out of her room. The day is waiting. Life is waiting. And though her steps are small, they are hers. And she is finally beginning to believe that one day, she will be free. Seeking help. The morning sun filters through the tall windows of the Lagos, Ikeja Counseling Center of Nigeria, painting long, soft lines across the polished floor. The air smells faintly of coffee and paper, a comforting scent that feels different from the heavy, stagnant air of her house. It is a quiet space, filled with muted colors, soft chairs, and the faint hum of the outside world seeping in. Abigeal sits in one of the chairs near the window, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her legs swing slightly, just enough to let out the nervous energy she doesn't know how to contain. She keeps her eyes fixed on a small patch of sunlight on the floor, tracing its edges as if mapping a safe territory in a world that has always felt unsafe. Today, she is here because of Nadia. Nadia's presence, her constant gentle encouragement, has been the thread that pulled her out of the fog long enough to seek something better. And though Abigeal feels frightened, there is a flicker of hope, the tiny spark that says perhaps someone will see her, truly see her, for the first time. A soft knock at the door breaks her thoughts. Abigeal, says a calm voice. I'm Lara. Please, come in. Abigeal stands slowly, her knees stiff. She nods once, her voice caught somewhere between a whisper and nothing. Hi. Lara gestures to the chair across from her. Please, sit wherever you like. There's no rush. The room is small but comforting. A few potted plants occupy corners, their green leaves softening the space. A shelf holds books about coping, healing, and resilience. Abigeal notices a small globe on the table, its colors bright and hopeful. The world feels vast in a way it rarely has for her. She sits, folding her hands again. Her heartbeat is loud in her ears, and her mind races with 1,000 worries. Will I say the wrong thing? Will she judge me? Will this make it worse? but she lets the thoughts pass without stopping them. For the first time in a long while, she is just present. Lara studies her with gentle curiosity. She does not speak immediately. She waits. And that waiting, patient, unpressured, calm, feels safer than anything Abigeal has experienced in years. You've taken a big step just by coming here, Lara says softly. I know it isn't easy. Abigeal exhales, her shoulders relaxing slightly. I don't know where to start, she admits. I feel like there's too much. That's okay, Lara says. You can start anywhere. There's no right or wrong way. You can tell me as much or as little as you want. I'm here to listen. The words, simple and clear, feel like a lifeline. No judgment, no rush, just listening. Abigeal swallows and begins slowly. She talks about the house, about her mother's absence, about the heaviness of living in silence for so long. She does not yet speak the darkest parts aloud, but she speaks enough to feel the weight in her chest lighten, just a little. Each sentence is like a brick removed from a wall she has carried for years. Lara listens. She nods. She repeats back what she hears to show understanding, not to interrupt or correct. She offers small, gentle questions that guide without pressure. When you felt trapped, Lara asks softly, what did you need most? Abigeal hesitates, then whispers, I needed someone to believe me, to stand up for me, to see me. That makes sense, Lara replies. And that was not your fault. The world failed to give you that. But you are here now, and you are beginning to give it to yourself. Abigeal lets the words sink in. It feels strange, almost foreign, to hear that someone is affirming her pain and her strength simultaneously. She realizes, with a mixture of fear and relief, that she has never been allowed to feel both at once. They talk for what feels like hours, but is likely only 40 minutes. They do not rush. They do not pressure. Abigeal shares her memories, her fears, and for the first time, the creeping understanding that perhaps she is not broken, just carrying too much for one person to bear alone. Lara validates every fragment of her experience, giving it a name, giving it recognition. By the end of the session, Abigeal feels exhausted, yet strangely lighter. Her mind is still crowded with emotions, but the knot of fear that lives in her chest has loosened for the first time in years. For the first time, she feels like she might not have to carry everything alone. As she rises to leave, Lara offers her a reassuring smile. Remember, Abigeal, this is just the beginning. You are taking back your story, one step at a time. Abigeal nods. She walks out into the late afternoon sunlight, feeling the warmth on her face as though it is a small piece of hope made tangible. She knows the road ahead will be long, filled with moments of doubt, fear, and setbacks. But for the first time, she also knows that she does not have to face it alone. And just like that, the tiniest thread of freedom begins to weave its way into her life. She takes a slow breath, feeling the air fill her lungs. She feels Nadia's support in the quiet strength she carries inside herself. She feels the possibility of a future she has never dared to imagine. Abigeal is not yet free, but she has begun to step toward it. And for now, that is enough. Naming the pain. The Abigeal Lagos counseling room smells faintly of books and paper, a scent that has begun to feel comforting to the young, innocent Nigerian girl. She sits across from Lara, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her shoulders tense, but her posture more upright than it was in the first session. She is here because she has chosen to be, and because something inside her is tired of carrying everything alone. Lara watches her with the same calm patience that has guided Abigeal through the last few meetings. She does not push. She simply waits, creating a space where the words that have been trapped for so long can finally surface. You've shared a lot already, Lara begins gently. And I want you to know, the things you went through, the fear, the pain, it all matters. And it wasn't your fault. Abigeal swallows hard. She has heard pieces of this before, from Nadia, from her own thoughts. But hearing it here, spoken with such unwavering calm, feels different. It's hard to even say it out loud, she whispers. Her voice trembles, but she keeps it steady. Because when I think about it, I still feel ashamed. Like somehow I let it happen. Lara leans forward slightly, her voice soft but firm. Abigeal, what happened to you was not your fault. The blame never belonged to you. You were a child. You were supposed to be protected. Abigeal nods, tears welling in her eyes. She said the words silently to herself for years, but saying them aloud brings a strange, bitter mix of pain and relief. For the first time, she names the weight she has carried in concrete terms. Not vague feelings of fear or unease, but real trauma, real violation of trust, real injustice. I, I feel so trapped inside myself, she says. Like the person I was, the girl I used to be, was stolen from me. And I don't know how to get her back. That part of you isn't gone, Laura says softly. She's still inside you. You've survived. You've endured. And surviving is a kind of strength, even if it doesn't feel like it. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means reclaiming your life from what happened. Abigeal's chest tightens. She blinks rapidly, trying to hold back the tears that threaten to fall. But I don't know if I can, she admits. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust anyone. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe again. You can, Laura replies, gently but firmly. Step by step, one small choice at a time. Today you came here. That is a step. You spoke some of the truth out loud. That is a step. Each time you acknowledge the pain instead of hiding it, each time you name it, each time you reach for support, you take another step. Abigeal closes her eyes and takes a slow, deliberate breath. The tears she has been holding back now slide down her cheeks, one after another, releasing the tension she has carried for years. It feels like the first rainfall after a long drought, cleansing, painful, but necessary. I've been afraid for so long, she whispers. Afraid that if I speak, no one will believe me. Afraid that if I fight for myself, I'll only make things worse. Afraid that I'll always be alone. You are not alone, Laura says. Not anymore. And speaking your truth doesn't make it worse. It makes it real. And the moment something becomes real, you can begin to reclaim it. Abigeal breathes in deeply, letting the words settle inside her like a fragile ember. For the first time in years, she allows herself to feel a spark of hope. Not full, not steady, but enough to remind her that life can be more than survival. She thinks of Nadia, waiting for her outside, believing in her even when Abigeal could not. She thinks of the small park bench where she first began to speak the truth. She thinks of the sunlight filtering through the curtains of her room. I think I want to try, she whispers. I want to try to believe that I can heal, that I can be whole again, that I can have a life that isn't defined by what happened. That is a brave choice, Laura says softly. Healing is not linear. Some days will be harder than others. But choosing to take even one step toward it, that is powerful. And it is yours. Abigeal nods, feeling the weight in her chest loosen, if only slightly. It is not gone. It will not disappear overnight. But the walls around it are starting to crack. Small, subtle fractures appear, allowing her own voice to seep through. For the first time in a long while, she allows herself to believe, even just a little, that she does not have to live trapped inside her pain, that she can reclaim herself, that she can find a life beyond fear. And with that thought, fragile and new as it is, she rises from the chair, feeling, perhaps for the first time, that she has begun to step towards something bigger than survival. Because naming the pain is not the end. It is the beginning. And Abigeal is finally beginning to take the first steps of her own journey toward freedom.